Local vaccine impacts, a potential ICE crackdown, and Massachusetts campus scare. One of the representatives from the district in Congress is here to talk about it all. It's time to go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Good morning, everyone. We are now just days away from Boston's preliminary election. Students are back to school. It is, and it feels like September. Hello and welcome to OTR. I'm Ed Harding.
And I'm Charmin Sacchetti. And joining us today is Congresswoman Lori Trahan. She represents part of northern Massachusetts, including her hometown of Lowell. Trahan was first elected to Congress in 2018. Thanks for being here.
Great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks
Good
for
to
coming
see you
in.
both.
I'd love to start with something that happened on campus at UMass Lowell this week, and we have some video of it. So take a look at the video. It was a security scare on the campus here. This young man walking down the street carrying what looked like a long rifle during the day around the school. This video made its way through social media. Students and staff sheltered in place for hours. Investigators later identified it as a minor in connection with the incident, recovered the weapon. The weapon was a replica, an airsoft replica weapon. Give me your overarching reaction to this.
Well, first of all, thank God this was a false alarm. In instances like this, you're of course so fortunate for law enforcement. What we saw was incredible collaboration between campus police, the Lowell Police Department, the state police, the FBI. Everybody descended on Lowell. And what I heard overwhelmingly about in the aftermath was also the communications by the university.
Yeah.
It was they were able to lock down campus. They were able to get people to shelter in place for hours in this case, and then also let people know when it was safe to move about campus. And so, I think the university really, they obviously had many exercises for an instance like this, and the whole community really rallied together.
Obviously, when you see that video, and it looks like it's a real rifle, and it didn't have that orange toy thing on the end, which would signal that it's not a real rifle.
Right.
So I can understand all of those pieces put together. And to that young man running down the street with that rifle, it's amazing that he didn't get shot.
Yeah, that was a jarring video. It was the first day of classes on campus, so you just imagine those students, their parents. We got a lot of phone calls immediately, and so unfortunately it's the world we live in. This is America in 2025, where we have to prepare for an instance where somebody could come on to campus with a gun.
Sadly, how often do we hear about school shootings?
It's not episodic anymore. It feels like we're on a schedule.
Right.
I want to ask you about RFK Jr. He underwent withering criticism from a Senate committee on his vaccine policy and his record as President Trump's health secretary. He blamed the CDC for the number of deaths during COVID, said he didn't trust data showing vaccines had saved millions of lives. Experts are worried the CDC is losing its credibility under his watch. Should he keep his job?
No, everybody should be worried. Look, RFK Jr. made no secret that he was going to disrupt our healthcare system. And what did Donald Trump do? He rewarded him by making him health secretary. And now we're seeing the result of that. $1 trillion nearly cut from Medicaid, 15 million people standing to lose their health insurance, undermining the CDC and the field of experts and scientists and doctors that we've relied on for years to give us safe vaccines that have protected seniors and children alike.
Longer term implications, looking long term at this, what do you see?
Well, we're already seeing it. Florida has already gotten rid of their vaccine mandates. That's directly going to put
for children.
Yeah. That's directly going to put children who are battling pediatric disease are seniors who have already lived through the eradication of polio, rubella, and measles. We've got the largest measles outbreak in 20 years. This is dangerous, and it's absolutely preventable. And I think what you saw this past week in the Senate is it's not just Democrats who are saying it. There are Republican senators, many of whom are doctors, who are sounding the alarm.
The undermining.
But is it loud enough to push back enough against this White House? Because we haven't really seen Republicans push back hard against this White House.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, look, there are people who feel betrayed because they confirmed him, and they had promises made by RFK that he was not going to undermine vaccine policy in this country, and they feel lied to. And so I do think there will be more accountability and hopefully more oversight of this administration, especially as these cuts go into effect. I mean, people are going to lose their insurance on a wide scale. We're looking at the premium ACA tax credits that right now are hanging in the balance of this budget debate that we're going to have in the next couple of weeks. Another 5 million people could lose their insurance. And not just people losing insurance, everybody's premiums are going to go up. In Massachusetts, that could be a 150% increase.
A big increase.
A huge increase.
Let's talk about Massachusetts, because Governor Healy has announced a plan to guarantee insurance coverage of vaccines recommended by the state. And also the state is working with other Northeast states to develop vaccine recommendations. So this is where we are now. Where do you think we are headed? Where are we headed?
Well, first of all, thank heavens we live in Massachusetts with a governor who understands how important it is that our public health, that people have confidence in our public health and our vaccine recommendations. I think you're going to see a lot more states do the same thing. But this should not be based on where you live. I mean, we always say that healthcare should not, your coverage and your access should not be determined by zip code. But that's exactly what's going to happen.
Or red state, blue state, right?
Absolutely. I mean, vaccines are here to protect all of us, and we've been safely administering vaccines for generations, and we have to continue that. I do think that we have a role to play here in Massachusetts, which the governor is leading on. I think in Congress, you're going to hear more people as changes are made to their states and as vaccine, rates decline, that there will be a major push on changing this disastrous policy.
President Trump blamed bipartisan pressure to release files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, and I'm quoting here, this is what the president said, as a Democratic hoax that never ends. The House Oversight Committee made public a batch of files last week, but said that many were already made public. House Republicans don't want a vote to release all the files. So same question for this. Where are we headed with this?
Well, I think it's important to remind people that this is about justice. This is about justice for the women who were sexually assaulted over years. They have come to Washington asking for us to pass legislation to release those files. They know that what has been released so far has already been made public. It's not the files that they're interested in being made public. And there is a bipartisan coalition. There's 216 signers on this bill to release the files in total. And let's just say, this is a promise that President Trump made, which is why the victims are in Washington, just asking him to fulfill that promise that he made on the campaign trail.
Well, the president is very good at changing the subject and distracting, so to speak. But is this something that Democrats feel like this is the issue they can seize on because the president is unable to sort of take the attention off of it?
You know, there aren't many times where you have Democrats and Republicans standing shoulder to shoulder in Washington these days. This is an issue that just crosses party lines, right? It is
not going away?
It's not going away. No, we call it a discharge petition, but it is a way to force a vote on a piece of legislation. Republicans have signed it. Most Democrats have signed it, and if not everybody has, it's only because we were in session this week for a day and a half. But I suspect that many people will sign because their constituents want them to. I mean, this should not even be an issue. We know that Trump is named in these files, but he claims that he has done nothing wrong. And so the fastest way to prove that to the American people is to release the files.
Yeah.
All right. The Trump administration may unleash another massive immigration blitz here in Massachusetts, this time more focused, they say, in Boston as early as this month. We know it could also, of course, include other cities. Do you have any concerns about this? Have you expressed any concerns to ICE?
Yeah, I think there's a reason why people, even who voted for this president, are deeply uncomfortable with the deportation tactics of this administration. We've seen the president push federal law enforcement to bend, if not break the law. Remember, we're seeing people with masks on in unmarked vehicles with no identification, not targeting the criminals and the violent people that are here
Because
illegally.
they say
that
they
the
are.
president,
They say they are
and they're
targeting the
not, because too many videos are out there. We have too many stories of parents bringing their children to school, people trying to get to work, people going to their immigration appointments, trying to do the right thing to get status in our country. This president has gone so far beyond, and not once folks are picked up, we're seeing them get deported to
Right.
countries that they're
Right.
not from, to
Right.
countries that they've never been to. And then we're also seeing vigilantes in red states who, if I don't have to show an ID, or if I don't have to, if I can wear a mask, I can just go ahead and intimidate people who don't look like me or don't speak the same language. This is not what people voted for. This is way too far. It's not just Democrats who have had enough. The polling bears this out. Independents, Republicans are saying enough of this.
Congresswoman Lori Trahan is in the chair. Our conversation continues. Stay with us.